Jake Morrison walked into the huge meeting room with heavy steps. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that changed colors every few seconds. Hundreds of alien beings sat in floating chairs around a circular table that seemed to go on forever. The air smelled strange, like burning metal mixed with flowers. He had been Earth's main speaker for the Galactic Council for 5 years now. 5 long years of being treated like a child who didn't know better. Today felt different, though. Today he was tired of being polite. The Zephyrian delegate was talking again. It looked like a giant butterfly with too many eyes and a voice that sounded like wind through broken glass. The human species has shown they cannot handle responsibility, it said. We must limit their growth for the safety of all. Jake's hands turned into fists under the table. Lisa Parker sat behind him in the watching area. She was Earth's top military advisor and one of the smartest people he knew. He could hear her typing fast on her small computer, probably sending messages back to Earth. The motion to restrict human expansion to 5 star systems passes, announced the council leader. It was an Altarian which looked like a huge octopus with a brain you could see through its clear head. The Korthak Empire will receive mining rights to 12 new sectors. That was it. That was the moment Jake Morrison had enough. For 30 years, Earth had followed every rule the Council made. They said humans couldn't build certain weapons, so Earth stopped making them. They said humans couldn't explore past certain areas, so Earth's ships turned around when they hit those invisible lines in space. They said humans couldn't trade with some alien races, so Earth's merchants found other customers. And what did humanity get for being good? Nothing. Less than nothing. The Korthak Empire was known for starting fights and taking things that didn't belong to them. They had attacked 3 different planets in the past year alone, but they got 12 new places to dig for rare metals and crystals. Meanwhile, Earth, which had never started a war with anyone, got told they could only have 5 small star systems. This is not fair, Jake said, standing up slowly. The room got quiet. All those alien eyes turned to look at him. Excuse me? Said the Altarian leader. Its tentacles moved in a way that Jake had learned meant it was annoyed. I said this is not fair, Jake repeated, louder this time. For 30 years, Earth has done everything you asked. We followed every law, signed every treaty, and helped solve every problem you brought to us. And this is how you repay us? A creature that looked like a walking tree made a sound like wind through leaves. Jake's translator told him it was laughing. Young species always think they deserve more than they have earned, it said. Earned? Jake's voice got louder. Other humans in the watching area started to pay attention. Lisa Parker had stopped typing and was staring at him. What exactly have we not earned? The Zephyrian delegate's many eyes blinked at different times. You have been part of this council for only 30 of your years. Other species have been here for thousands. You must learn patience. Patience? Jake could feel his face getting hot. The Veltar Consortium just got the mining rights to the Kepler systems. Those systems were found by human explorers. Human ships were the first to map them. Human scientists were the first to discover the rare elements there. But because we're a young species, we don't get to keep what we found? The council leaders' tentacles moved faster now. The Kepler systems are too valuable to be controlled by one species. The Veltar Consortium has the experience to manage such resources properly. Jake looked around the room. He saw beings from hundreds of different worlds. Some breathed air like humans did. Others lived in tanks of liquid or wore suits filled with gas. Some had fur, others had scales, and a few looked like they were made of rock or metal. But they all had one thing in common. They all looked at humans like they were pets who had learned a few tricks. Lisa, Jake said without turning round. Tell Admiral Collins to prepare the fleet. He heard Lisa gasp behind him. Jake, what are you doing? Jake Morrison had spent 5 years learning the languages, customs, and laws of dozens of alien species. He had memorized every treaty Earth had signed. He knew exactly what he was about to do, and he knew exactly what it would mean. The United Earth Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, he said clearly. We will no longer follow treaties that treat humanity like children who don't know what's best for them. The room exploded with noise. Aliens started talking, shouting, and making sounds Jake didn't have names for. Some jumped up from their chairs. Others started moving toward the exits. The Altarian leader slammed something that looked like a hammer made of light on the table. The room got quiet again. "You cannot be serious," it said. "Humans cannot survive without the Council's protection. Your species is still young and weak. The galaxy is full of dangers you do not understand." Jake smiled for the first time in months. "Maybe we are young. Maybe we don't understand everything about the galaxy yet. But we understand fairness. We understand right and wrong. And we understand that being treated with respect is not something we should have to beg for." He started walking toward the door. Lisa and the other humans in the room followed him. "You will regret this decision," called the Zephyrian delegate. "Without the Council's guidance, humanity will make mistakes that could destroy your entire species." Jake stopped at the door and turned around one last time. "Then we'll make our own mistakes and learn from them. That's what growing up means." The doors closed behind them. Jake heard the aliens start arguing among themselves. He didn't care anymore what they had to say. Captain Ryan Torres was eating his morning breakfast when the first distress call came in. His ship, the New Horizon, was exploring a quiet part of space near the edge of known territory. They had been out here for 3 months, mapping new star systems and looking for planets that might support life. "Captain, we're getting an emergency signal," said Lieutenant Bobby Chen from the bridge. "It's coming from the Arcturus trade route." Ryan put down his coffee and hurried to the bridge. The New Horizon was not a military ship. It was built for exploration, with laboratories and scientific equipment instead of weapons. But every ship in space was supposed to help when someone sent out a distress call. "What's the situation?" Ryan asked as he sat in his captain's chair. "A draconian cargo ship is under attack by pirates," Bobby reported. "They're asking for help." Ryan frowned. The Draconians were lizard-like aliens who controlled several important trade routes. They had some of the biggest and strongest cargo ships in the galaxy. If pirates were bold enough to attack them, something was very wrong. "Set course for their location. Maximum speed." Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her workstation. She was the ship's expert on alien cultures and had spent years studying how different species got along with each other. "Captain, this is the 3rd distress call we've received this week. That's more than we usually get in 6 months." Ryan had noticed the same thing. Maybe it's just bad luck. But it wasn't bad luck. When they reached the Draconian ship, they found it floating dead in space. The pirates had already left, taking everything valuable they could carry. The ship's crew was alive but scared. "They came out of nowhere," the Draconian captain told Ryan through the radio. His voice was shaky and he kept looking around like he expected another attack. 20 ships, all different types. I've never seen pirates work together like that before. 2 days later, another distress call came in. This time it was from a Zephyrian passenger ship that had been attacked near a major space station. The week after that, Ryan's crew rescued the survivors from 3 different ships that had been hit by the same group of pirates. "This doesn't make sense," Amy said during one of their daily meetings. "These aren't random attacks. Someone is targeting ships on the major trade routes." Commander Helen Burke was supposed to be on vacation. She had worked for 20 years as Earth's representative to various alien governments and had finally decided to take some time off. But when reports started coming in about the growing problems in space, she cut her vacation short. Helen had contacts throughout the galaxy. She knew traders, diplomats, military officers, and even a few smugglers who owed her favors. She started making calls. What she learned worried her. "The whole galaxy is falling apart," she told her old friend General Kate Sullivan during a secure video call. "The Christek Collective and the Nebula clans are fighting over mining rights in the Horsehead sector. The Altarians and the Veltar Consortium are arguing about trade agreements. Even the peaceful Zephyrians are having border disputes with their neighbors." Kate leaned forward in her chair. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that some species are pulling their ships off the major trade routes. The Galactic Banking Consortium is starting to worry about loans they made to smaller governments, and pirates everywhere are getting bolder because nobody is working together to stop them." What Helen discovered next changed everything. She was having dinner with Ambassador Ilex, an old Altarian friend who used to work closely with human diplomats. Gilix had too much to drink and started talking about things he probably shouldn't have. The council meetings are terrible now, he said, his tentacles moving in ways that showed he was upset. Everyone argues about everything, nobody wants to compromise. The Draconians won't talk to the Korthax. The Zephyrians think the Christek Collective is trying to cheat them. Even simple decisions take weeks to make. It wasn't always like this, Helen said carefully. No, it wasn't. Gilix took another drink. When the humans were there, things were different. You people had a way of making everyone calm down and think clearly. You asked questions that made us see problems from different angles. You suggested solutions that helped everyone get at least part of what they wanted. Helen felt a cold feeling in her stomach. What do you mean? I mean, humans were the glue that held everything together, Ilix said. We didn't realize it at the time, but every major agreement in the past 30 years had human fingerprints on it. Every peace treaty, every trade deal, every solution to border disputes. Humans were always there, helping us find ways to work together. 3 days later, Helen was back on Earth, sitting in an emergency meeting with President Maria Santos and the top military leaders. The situation is worse than we thought, Helen explained. When we left the Galactic Council, we didn't just walk away from unfair treatment. We accidentally removed the one thing that was keeping galactic civilization from tearing itself apart. General Sullivan pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed where conflicts were happening. There were dozens of them, and more appeared every day. The pirates are taking advantage of the chaos, she said. Trade routes are shutting down. Some planets are running out of food and medicine because supply ships are too afraid to make deliveries. President Santos looked tired. She had been dealing with angry calls from Earth's colonies, who were worried about being cut off from supplies and protection. Are you telling me that by trying to get respect for humanity, we accidentally broke the galaxy? Dr. Nina Campbell had been studying galactic economics for 15 years. She had charts and graphs that showed how connected everything was. The galaxy's economy depends on cooperation between different species, she explained. Humans weren't just mediators. In political disputes, we were also the ones who helped different species understand each other's business practices and trade customs. Without humans to help them communicate and compromise, Helen added, everyone is falling back on old prejudices and suspicions. Species that have been allies for decades are now treating each other like enemies. The room was quiet for a long moment. So what do we do now? President Santos asked. Before anyone could answer, an aide rushed into the room with a message tablet. Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to talk. General Kate Sullivan stood in front of the biggest screen she had ever seen. The wall of Earth's Strategic Command Center was covered with a map of the entire galaxy. Red dots showed where fighting was happening. Yellow dots showed where governments were having serious problems. Green dots showed places that were still peaceful. There weren't many green dots left. Ma'am, we have 17 more requests for help, said Lieutenant Colonel Paul Adams. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. The Altarian refugee ships need somewhere safe to land. The Zephyrian medical stations are running out of supplies. And the Draconian trade fleet is asking if they can use our spaceports. Kate rubbed her tired eyes. It had been 6 months since Earth left the Galactic Council. 6 months of watching the galaxy tear itself apart. How many refugee ships are we talking about? Over 300, ma'am. And more are coming every day. The fighting had started small. The Christek Collective and the Nebula clans had disagreed about who could mine crystals in the Horsehead sector. Before humans left the council, this kind of problem would have been solved in a few weeks. Someone would have suggested sharing the mining rights or taking turns. Everyone would have compromised and been happy enough. But now there were no humans to suggest compromises. The Christek beings were made of living silicon. They thought in straight lines and mathematical equations. The Nebula clans lived in gas clouds and thought in swirling patterns. They couldn't understand each other at all, so instead of talking, they started shooting. Dr. Nina Campbell walked into the command center carrying a thick folder of papers. She was Earth's best expert on how the galaxy's economy worked. Her job used to be boring. Now it was the most important job on Earth. General, I have the analysis you asked for, she said. It's not good news. Kate took the folder and started reading. The numbers were worse than she had feared. The Galactic Banking Consortium has collapsed, Nina explained. Without humans to help different species understand each other's financial systems, they couldn't agree on interest rates or loan terms. Now nobody trusts anybody else's money. What does that mean for trade? It means trade is dying. Ships can't buy fuel. Colonies can't pay for food shipments. Some planets are already starting to run out of basic supplies. Kate looked at the big screen again. More red dots had appeared while they were talking. There's something else, Nina continued. The automated defense systems around the galactic core have stopped working. Kate felt her heart skip a beat. The Void Hunters? The containment field is still holding, but it's getting weaker. Those systems need regular maintenance by teams from different species working together. Without the Council to coordinate the work. Kate didn't need her to finish. Everyone in the military knew about the Void Hunters. They were ancient beings that ate energy and matter. Hundreds of years ago, the combined fleets of dozens of species had barely managed to trap them in the galactic core. If they got out, President Maria Santos arrived at the command center looking exhausted. She had been in meetings with world leaders all day trying to figure out what Earth should do. Talk to me, Kate. How bad is it really? Kate pointed to the screen. We're getting reports of fighting in 47 different sectors. The main trade routes have shut down. 3 entire star systems have gone dark. We think their governments collapsed and they don't have power for their communication arrays anymore. And the pirates? Getting bolder every day. Captain Danny Lewis reported that his patrol ship was outnumbered 10-1 yesterday. The pirates are working together now, sharing information and resources. Some of them have better weapons than legitimate governments. President Santos sat down heavily in a chair. Nina, give me the economic picture. The galaxy's economy is crashing, Nina said simply. Species that depended on trade are running out of everything. Food, medicine, fuel, raw materials. Some planets only have a few weeks of supplies left. What about the species that were always hostile to us? The ones who voted to restrict our expansion? They're suffering too. The Korthic Empire lost half their territory to pirates and rebels. The Veltar Consortium can't maintain their mining operations because they can't get replacement parts for their equipment. Even the Altarians are having problems. As if summoned by her words, Lieutenant Colonel Adams approached with a communication tablet. Ma'am, we're receiving another transmission from the Galactic Council. President Santos looked at the tablet. The message was from the same Altarian Chancellor who had mocked Jake Morrison 6 months ago. But this time, he didn't sound proud or condescending. Honorable President Santos, the message began. The Galactic Council humbly requests Earth's assistance in resolving the current crisis. We acknowledge that we may have underestimated humanity's value to galactic stability. Kate laughed, but there was no humor in it. May have underestimated? The galaxy is falling apart. There's more, President Santos said, still reading. They're offering us full membership with voting rights equal to the oldest species. They want to make Jake Morrison the Council's chief mediator. They're even offering to give us the mining rights to the Kepler systems. What do you think? Kate asked. President Santos was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the screen with all its red dots, thought about the refugee ships asking for help, and considered the millions of innocent beings who were suffering because of decisions made by politicians and generals. I think we created this mess by walking away, she said finally. Maybe we need to fix it by going back. But on our terms this time, Kate said. Yes, on our terms. Dr. Nina Campbell cleared her throat. Ma'am, there's one more thing you should know. I've been analyzing the pattern of conflicts, and I think I know why everything fell apart so quickly. Go ahead. Humans weren't just mediating disputes. We were also the species that everyone else trusted to be fair. When the Draconians had a problem with the Zephyrians, they would both accept a human's judgment. When the Christek Collective needed to negotiate with the Nebula clans, they wanted humans there to make sure nobody was cheating. Kate nodded. We were the referees. Exactly. And when the referees left the game, everyone started breaking the rules.
President Santos stood
up and walked to the big screen. She touched one of the red dots and information appeared showing a battle between two species she had never heard of, fighting over resources on a planet whose name she couldn't pronounce. "How many people do you think have died because we wanted to be treated with respect?" she asked quietly. Nobody answered. They all knew the number was too high to count. "Set up a meeting with Jake Morrison," President Santos said. "If we're going back to the galaxy, we're going to do it right this time." Admiral Claire Johnson was having her morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. Every screen in Earth's Deep Space Command Center turned bright red. Emergency messages flooded in from monitoring stations across the galaxy. "Ma'am, we have a code black situation," shouted Commander Tim Brooks from his station. His hands were shaking as he read the reports. "The containment field around the galactic core has failed." Claire felt her coffee cup slip from her fingers. It crashed to the floor, but she didn't notice. "Are you certain?" "Yes, ma'am. The Void Hunters are free." For 800 years, the most dangerous beings in the galaxy had been trapped in the galactic core. The Void Hunters were older than any civilization anyone knew about. They didn't build cities or have families or make art. They just consumed everything they touched, turning matter and energy into nothing. "How many got out?" "We don't know yet. The monitoring stations went dark as soon as the field collapsed. But ma'am, there's something else. We're getting distress calls from the edge of the core region. 3 star systems have gone completely silent in the past hour." Claire closed her eyes. 3 star systems meant billions of lives. All gone in. Less time than it took her to drink her morning coffee. "Get me President Santos on the line. Now." While they waited for the connection, more bad news kept coming in. The Korthak Empire's home fleet had tried to fight the Void Hunters. All 50 of their biggest warships were destroyed in minutes. The Altarian defense stations that had protected the core region for centuries were simply gone, as if they had never existed. "Admiral Johnson?" President Santos appeared on the main screen. She was in her pajamas and looked like she had just woken up. "What's the situation?" "The worst-case scenario, ma'am. The Void Hunters are loose and nobody knows how to stop them." President Santos ran her hands through her messy hair. "How did this happen?" "The containment systems needed regular maintenance by teams from different species. With the council falling apart, nobody was coordinating the work. Some systems failed. Others were sabotaged by pirates looking for valuable technology. The whole thing collapsed like a house of cards." Claire's second-in-command, Captain Kelly Brooks, walked over with a data tablet. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the surviving Korthak ships. Their war leader wants to speak with you." Claire had met war leader Thax before, during various military conferences. He was huge, even for a Korthak, with scars covering his reptilian face and arms. He was known for his pride and his refusal to show weakness to anyone. But the being who appeared on the screen looked nothing like the proud warrior she remembered. His scales were dull, his eyes were filled with fear, and his voice shook when he spoke. "Admiral Johnson," he said, "my people need help. The Void Hunters took our homeworld. Billions of my kind are dead. Our greatest weapons did nothing to slow them down. I'm sorry for your loss, war leader." "We were wrong," Thax continued. "My empire fought to keep humans restricted to 5 star systems. We thought your species was weak and needed to be controlled. But we were the weak ones. We let our pride blind us to the truth." "What truth?" "That your people were the only ones who could see beyond tribal interests. Every species in the galaxy thinks about their own needs first. Humans think about what's best for everyone. We should have listened to you. We should have treated you as equals from the beginning." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in uncomfortable silence. Over the next few days, the situation got worse. The Void Hunters moved through space like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Entire civilizations that had existed for thousands of years were wiped out in hours. Dr. Rachel Morgan was Earth's leading expert on alien psychology. She had spent years studying how different species thought and behaved. Now she found herself in the terrible position of watching those species die. "The galaxy is experiencing complete psychological collapse," she told the emergency council meeting. Species that have been enemies for centuries are trying to work together, but they don't know how. They're used to humans helping them communicate and find common ground. Secretary of Defense Gary Miller pulled up reports from across the galaxy. Refugee fleets are scattered everywhere with nowhere safe to go. The few planets that still have working governments can't handle the number of people asking for help. What about the Galactic Council? President Santos asked. It doesn't exist anymore, Gary replied. The last meeting ended in a fight. 3 different species declared war on each other right there in the council chamber. The Altarian Chancellor tried to maintain order, but nobody would listen to him. Dr. Nina Campbell had been working around the clock to understand the economic impact of the crisis. The technological infrastructure that supported billions of beings is crumbling, she reported. Without coordinated maintenance and supply chains, even basic things like power plants and water treatment facilities are shutting down. President Santos looked around the room at her advisors. These were some of the smartest people on Earth, but they all looked lost and overwhelmed. How many people have died because we walked away from the council? Dr. Morgan answered quietly. Conservative estimates put the number at over 50 billion, and it's growing every hour. The room fell silent. 50 billion lives lost because Earth wanted to be treated with respect. There's something else, Dr. Morgan continued. I've been analyzing communication intercepts from across the galaxy. Every species is saying the same thing. They're calling this the human crisis. Not because humans caused it directly, but because humans were the solution to problems nobody realized existed. Jake Morrison, who had been quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke up. Are you saying this is my fault? That I shouldn't have pulled Earth out of the council? No, President Santos said firmly. You did what you thought was right. We all supported that decision. But now we have to face the consequences. What consequences? We have to go back. Not because they're begging us to, but because innocent people are dying. People who had nothing to do with how the council treated us. Jake looked tired and older than his years. And if we go back, what's to stop them from treating us the same way again, once the crisis is over? Because this time we'll make sure they understand what they're getting when they get us. President Santos replied. We're not going back as junior partners hoping for scraps from their table. We're going back as the people who can save the galaxy. Gary Miller stood up. Ma'am, are you saying we should use this crisis to our advantage? I'm saying we should use this crisis to make sure it never happens again. When we return to galactic politics, it will be as equals who earned their place by doing what nobody else could do. President Santos looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, entire worlds were dying while ancient evils consumed everything in their path. Get me Admiral Johnson. It's time to save the galaxy. Alex Turner was only 25 years old, but he had been studying galactic history since he was a teenager. While other young people were playing games or going to parties, Alex spent his time reading about ancient wars, peace treaties, and diplomatic failures. Now he sat in a room full of Earth's most important leaders, presenting an idea that could save the galaxy. The problem isn't that we left the Galactic Council, Alex explained, pointing to charts on the wall. The problem is how we left. We walked away angry and hurt, which made everyone else panic. But now we have something we didn't have before. What's that? Asked President Santos. Proof of our value. For 8 months, the galaxy has been tearing itself apart without us. Every species now knows exactly what happens when humans aren't around to help. We don't need to beg for respect anymore. We've earned it. Alex's plan was simple but brilliant. Earth would return to galactic politics, but not as members of the old Galactic Council. Instead, they would create something new, the Terran Mediation Consortium. It would be an independent organization that helped solve conflicts between different species. We charge for our services, Alex continued. Not money, but respect, equal treatment, fair deals. If species want human mediators to solve their problems, they have to agree to treat us as equals. General Kate Sullivan leaned forward. And if they refuse? Alex smiled. Then they can try to solve their problems without us. We've all seen how well that works. Within a week, President Santos approved the plan. Jake Morrison, who had dramatically led Earth's exit from the Council, now found himself with an even bigger job. He would be the head of the new Terran Mediation Consortium. Are you sure about this? Jake asked President Santos during a private meeting. A year ago, I was so angry I walked out on the entire galaxy. Now you want me to go back and fix everything? I can't think of anyone better for the job, she replied. You understand what it feels like to be treated unfairly. You won't let it happen again, to humans or anyone else. The first test came sooner than expected. The surviving ships from a dozen different species were gathered at the edge of the galaxy's spiral arm, afraid to go any deeper because of the Void Hunters. They were running out of food, fuel, and hope. Captain Kelly Brooks commanded the human flagship Peacekeeper as it approached the refugee fleet. She had been chosen to lead the mission because she was known for being calm under pressure and fair in her dealings with aliens. This is Captain Brooks of the Earthship Peacekeeper, she announced on all communication channels. We're here to help coordinate the defense against the Void Hunters. But first, we need to establish some ground rules. The response was immediate. Ship captains from dozens of species wanted to talk at once. They were desperate for human help, but also confused about what Earth wanted in return. We will help you, Kelly said firmly. But not as servants or junior partners. We will work with you as equals. Our ideas will be heard and respected. Our people will be treated with the same courtesy you show each other. Is that understood? One by one, the alien captains agreed. They didn't have much choice. Without human coordination, their fleet would fall apart in days. The battle plan Kelly's team developed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of trying to fight the Void Hunters directly, they would use the ancient being's own hunger against them. Dr. Ellen Martinez, Earth's expert on energy physics, had discovered something important. The Void Hunters consumed everything they touched, but they seemed to prefer certain types of matter and energy over others. If they could create the right kind of bait, we lure them into empty space, Ellen explained to the combined fleet commanders, far from any planets or inhabited systems. Then we detonate a series of controlled explosions that will create the kind of energy signature the Void Hunters can't resist. And then what? Asked a Zephyrian captain. Then we hit them with every weapon we have while they're feeding, said Commander Steve Parker, who was leading the military side of the operation. Not to destroy them, I don't think that's possible, but to drive them back toward the galactic core. The plan worked better than anyone had hoped. The Void Hunters took the bait and were successfully driven back to the core region. More importantly, the different species had worked together under human leadership to achieve something none of them could have done alone. Word of the victory spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Species that had been fighting each other for months suddenly wanted to talk about peace treaties. Pirates who had been terrorizing trade routes found themselves facing organized patrols again. The Galactic Banking Consortium was reformed with new rules that were fairer to everyone. But the biggest change was in how everyone thought about humans. Judge Patricia Clark was chosen to help write the new Galactic Constitution. Unlike the old Council, which had been dominated by a few powerful species, the new Galactic Cooperative gave every world an equal voice. The old system failed because it was based on the idea that some species were more important than others, Patricia explained to the inaugural assembly. The new system is based on the idea that everyone has something valuable to contribute. 2 years after Earth's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council, the galaxy was not just peaceful again, it was better than it had ever been. Trade routes were safer and more profitable. Conflicts between species were resolved quickly and fairly. The refugee crisis was over, and billions of beings had new homes on worlds that welcomed them. President Santos stood at the podium in the Great Hall of the new Galactic Cooperative. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat before her, waiting to hear her speech. A wise person once told me that sometimes you have to be willing to walk away from a table to earn the right to sit. Added as an equal, she began. Earth walked away from galactic politics because we were tired of being treated like children. We came back because we realized that with great ability comes great responsibility. She paused and looked around the room. She saw beings from worlds she had never heard of 2 years ago. Some breathed air, others lived in tanks of liquid. Some had fur, Others had scales, and a few looked like they were made of living crystal. But they all looked at her with respect. The universe is vast and full of wonders we are only beginning to understand, she continued. But the greatest wonder of all is what we can accomplish when we work together as equals, each contributing our unique gifts to the common good. As applause filled the hall, President Santos reflected on the difficult journey that had brought them all to this moment. Earth had wanted respect and had been willing to stand alone to get it. But in the end, they had earned something much more valuable, the knowledge that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from standing alone, but from helping others stand together. The galaxy had learned that true leadership wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It was about being the one willing to build bridges instead of walls, to listen instead of command, and to seek solutions that helped everyone instead of just yourself. And in that lesson, humanity had finally found its true place among the stars.